Hello and welcome back for another video. Today we're diving into 20 of the most valuable and essential creatures you need to tame in ARK. This list will be focused on base game creatures that are available on almost every single map, so no DLC creatures. These creatures are all essential in aiding you in progressing through any map in the game. The list is ordered in the way of what player level you can unlock each creature's saddle at, to make the video much easier to follow for newer players. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. What better way to kick off the video than with the Parasaur? Harvesting berries, especially narco berries, is a pain in the bum to do by hand, and I think it's safe to say that the Parasaur is your early easy ticket to a wealth of narcotics, which will open the door to taming more advanced creatures later down the line. You'll find the Parasaur spawning around the beaches and jungles on most maps. In the central south, easy spawns of Scorched Earth, the Green Zone on Aberration, and in the Sunken Forest and the City of Extinction. Tamed via a well-placed bowler for an easy knockout, preferring basic kibble, but you will most likely be taming it on berries, as it's one of the best early game tames that you can get your hands on. The saddle is unlocked at level 9 and can be crafted inside the player's inventory. Once saddled, you'll have a great early game land mount for harvesting berries and to aid you in holding heavy loads with a decent weight capacity. It is no fighter by any means, but it offers great utility for such an easy to obtain dino. It has a honk ability, which can be used to scare away a variety of small to medium creatures, giving you long enough to escape if need be. And of course its most useful ability, which is the radar scan. This can be triggered when mounted or via its radial menu with a number of options to choose from. When set in turret mode, the Parasaur will call out and scan for any nearby potential hostile creatures or enemy players. This will be visible with a red aura on screen, a great tool to use in PvP and PvE alike. This ability is great when playing Scorched Earth if you're looking to tame a phoenix, which only appears during a heatwave. However, with the Parasaur radar mode, you can scan and find a wild phoenix before a heatwave even occurs. Up next is going to be the mammoth, a personal favourite creature of mine. The mammoth is a powerful herbivore that you'll find in the colder areas on the map. If there's a snow biome, you'll find plenty of mammoths to tame. Of course, being as they do spawn in the snow biome, this is extremely dangerous and very cold, so you do have to be well equipped and have your wits about you. Tamed via typical knockout methods. If for some reason you do not own a flyer, I like to sail down the coast and bait the mammoth I want to tame into a trap. You can then knock it out safely and sail it away from danger if need be. Preferring superior kibble, but once again you'll most likely be taming your first one on berries. Once tamed, the saddle can be unlocked at level 31 and crafted inside a smithy. The mammoth is a great battle mount with great health, damage and weight stats, able to dish out a powerful stomp attack that deals great knockback. With this attack, it can gather wood like an absolute trooper, while having a whopping 75% weight reduction for it, boasting a primary directional tusk attack with great DPS and knockback too. Facing the camera forward will perform a quick straight tusk attack, facing to the left or right will perform a giant tusk swipe, which is the best attack for harvesting a ton of berries in one singular swipe. This attack is also great for harvesting thatch. Not only that, but it can grab smaller creatures and humans in its trunk and yeet them into oblivion. Its utility does not end there. The mammoth is an exceptional support mount, able to perform a trunk bellow, which will apply the intimidated debuff to targets. Any affected targets will inflict 25% less damage for the duration of 15 seconds and can be replenished whenever the mammoth performs the bellow. Can potentially be very useful in PvP, as affected players cannot use bolas or net projectiles when affected. There's more unique features to this bellow. For example, if the mammoth is standing in water, it can hydrate the player by giving them a free shower. Also, once used in water, it can store one charge of water in its trunk. It can also cancel the burning effects of any source of damage that inflicts the In Flames debuff. For example, the Fire Wyvern's Breath attack. Moving on to its second ability, which is the Ready for War buff. This occurs when a player is banging out a tune on the drum kit in the passenger seat and completes 3 successful rounds in a row, and can be used to constantly apply the buff. When active, this buff gives nearby allied players and creatures immunity to the Uteranus Fearoar and massive stamina regeneration. One thing to note is that creatures do have to be mounted to gain the benefits. All of these reasons are why the mammoth is one of the most useful creatures in the game. Up next, we have the Doedicurus. So we go from one valuable resource gatherer to the next. There's not many that can compare to the Doedicurus. You'll typically find them spawning around the mountainous regions, the redwoods, pretty much anywhere on Scorched Earth minus the mountains or the dunes, Aberration's Green Zone, and most commonly in the desert on Extinction, and rarely below the obelisk in the Sanctuary. Tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring regular kibble for the best taming effectiveness. The saddle can be crafted inside a smithy at level 34. Once saddled, you'll be rolling around in no time at all, where you can name your your first girl, Daisy Me Rollin'. While known for its exceptional stone gathering capabilities, where stone gathering will never be a problem ever again, while having a 75% weight reduction for it. They are great swimmers too, so if you have an area with plenty of rocks in the water, you can go for a cheeky swim and a swing, harvesting much quicker than it can when ridden on land. On extinction, however, you will be heading straight for the lamppost, tables and chairs in the sanctuary, which when paired with the Argentavis makes for the perfect farming team. The Doedicurus is by far the most efficient gatherer when harvesting these structures, able to harvest element dust, electronics, scrap metal and crystal by the bucket load. The Doedicurus isn't flashy with its abilities, but stone is always needed in ARK, therefore it will always be a very valuable tame to own whatever stage of the game. It seems we are just going through a list of the best resource gatherers in the game at the moment, and the Ankylosaurus is another exceptional resource gatherer, and is one of my personal favourite creatures in the game for good reason. You'll find the Ankylosaurus typically spawning around the mountainous regions and the snow biome. On Scorched Earth they pretty much spawn everywhere minus the dunes. On Aberration they spawn in the blue zone, and on Extinction you'll find them in the city, the snow dome, the desert dome and the sunken forest. Tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring regular kibble for the best taming effectiveness. Once tamed it can be saddled up at level 36, which can be crafted in a smithy. The Ankylosaurus, despite not being one of the largest or fastest herbivores, makes up for it with its tanky health, while also able to dish out some strong attacks with its deadly tail swing and bite. So it is more than capable of defending itself against dangerous predators. Its bite can be used to harvest berries and has a much faster attack speed, and the tail swing attack deals higher damage, but is slower to perform. Of course, the Ankylosaurus is mostly well known for its ability to gather metal by the bucket load, while having a massive 85% weight reduction for it. And just like the Doedicurus, they are great swimmers too, making them great for harvesting flint very quickly. They are also great for harvesting crystal, obsidian, sulfur and oil, just to name a few. And metal is probably the most valuable resource in the entire game, so the Anky is a must-have for any tribe. Then we have the Pteranodon. There's no denying that it will almost be every player's easy ticket to the skies. Found commonly around the beaches and redwoods on most maps, the Sanctuary and Wasteland on Extinction, a simple knockout tame that can be bowlered and KO'd with almost any weapon, but very easily with a few tranks to the face. Preferring regular kibble, but of course you'll probably be taming your first view on any type of meat you can find. Once tamed, it can be saddled up at level 38, crafted inside the player's inventory. Being able to fly freely around the map feels like a breath of fresh air. Its stats are not the best, pretty low health, terrible stamina and terrible weight, so you'll most likely need to pump a lot of levels into weight and stamina. It does have a bite attack which is nothing special, however it does also boast a spin attack when flying, which deals some pretty good damage, but don't forget to always keep an eye on that stamina as this attack does use a good chunk of it. With a high level you can easily take down dangerous threats including alpha predators to reap the rewards. They are a fast scouting mount that can get you places, including getting you to your first metal nodes. Your worst enemy when using the Pteranodon is its terrible stamina, which makes for a great name for one too. The next creature is going to be the dung beetle, which is always a vital creature to own when setting up a greenhouse and growing crops. They spawn in most caves, out in the dunes on Scorched Earth, Aberration's blue and red zone, and the Sanctuary and sulfur fields on Extinction. Tamed passively by either equipped spoiled meat or any type of feces in your final hotbar slot. Large or medium feces for the best taming effectiveness. Walking up to it and shoving poop straight up its bum. What a way to be tamed. Once tamed, the dung beetle offers utility like no other creature in the game. So to set them up, you'll want to throw them in a cage, stick them on wander. They do have the option to enable auto collect feces. This setting should automatically be turned on once tamed. It will then automatically pick up any poop whenever your nearby creatures do the deed, and it will collect poop well above its weight capacity. Over time your dung beetle converts the poop to oil and fertilizer. Clever girl. Moving on to our first aquatic creature on the list, the Archelon is a large herbivorous reptile and can be found on any map that has an ocean, typically found deep down around the depth of where you begin to see plesiosaurs. However, on the center map, it does also spawn around the shallow parts of the islands around the blue obelisk, so it is much easier to tame over there. Tamed passively, preferring either biotoxin or superior kibble from your final hotbar slot. Once tamed, the saddle can be unlocked at level 45 and crafted in a smithy. Stats wise, they are pretty tanky with great health, stamina and weight stats. They don't deal too much damage with their bite attack, however they are completely immune to the jellyfish stun and dismount, and will deal more damage to them, where they also receive the jellyfish killer buff, which massively increases their melee damage and gives them a slight bit of damage reduction for the duration of 80 seconds. They can also regenerate their health pretty quickly when force-fed biotoxin. A great traversal mount when it comes to ocean exploration, having a decent swimming speed. It can also make its way to land, admittedly slower than a snail can, but it still moves on land. The saddle has 4 passenger seats, and as you can see it has oxygen tanks on the saddle too. This isn't just for decoration, the saddle will provide oxygen to all passengers and also the rider and any player swimming nearby to the ARK, so there's no need for scuba tanks when using it. It does have some very cool abilities, one where it passively produces its own algae over time, which can be harvested by accessing its radial menu. This takes 2 hours to regrow when the ARK is parked on land, however when swimming in water it doubles the production of the algae, only taking 1 hour to cap out where it can be harvested to begin producing more. The ARK's food stat can also be leveled to increase the amount of algae it produces. The algae can be used as taming food for a variety of different herbivores. It works kind of like raw mutton does for carnivores, able to tame herbivores up much quicker than berries, and with much better taming effectiveness. But of course, it's still not as good as kibble. The algae can also be used as an ingredient in crafting algae sushi, which you can craft in a cooking pot. I'm pretty confident in saying that we've all been there, we've all damaged a creature accidentally after knocking it out, therefore tanking its taming effectiveness, where there's nothing else you can do other than letting it wake up and re-knock it out again. Well, those days are now over. You can force feed algae sushi to any knockout tame and it will improve any lost taming effectiveness by roughly 10%, which will have a cooldown of 5 minutes, and once that timer is up you can force feed it another, and rinse and repeat to get that creature back up to the full 100% taming effectiveness, which can be an absolute lifesaver. Owning any level of Archelon will be extremely beneficial to any player. Up next we have another personal favourite of mine, which is the Baryonyx. Another extremely versatile semi-aquatic mount, a pretty average battle mount on paper for its size, however it does have a lot of utility and advantages going its way, making it a go-to pick for many survivors. Found commonly throughout the swamps and the rivers on most maps, Aberration's Blue Zone, tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring regular kibble for the best taming efficiency. Once tamed can be saddled up at level 49 and crafted in a smithy. With its speed, agility, ability to jump while having a very slim build, makes it a very popular pick for running many caves on most maps, as it can fit into almost all of the island caves without needing cryopods. The rider can wield their weapons when mounted, allowing for taking out threats from afar. The Baryonyx is also the perfect land mount in opening the door to ocean exploration, as it does not possess an oxygen stat. Equipped with a deadly tailspin attack that can only be used when swimming, this attack can temporarily stun a wide variety of small to medium creatures or players, making the Baryonyx very dangerous in the water. And if that wasn't enough, it also has great healing properties too. It is a piscivore, however is able to heal much quicker than most carnivores when force-fed fish meat. It can also heal large chunks of its health when killing fish. So with all these offensive and defensive capabilities combined at its disposal, makes the Baryonyx one of the best all-rounders in the entire game. Moving back to land, we have the Thylacoleo, which is one I almost left off the list, as I find myself questioning if it is really essential or not. And I did actually pick it over the Megatherium, which is a creature I probably use a lot more than the Thyla. However, the Thyla is one of the most popular creature picks for many survivors, and for good reason. You'll find the Thyla commonly spawning up in the trees in the redwoods, ready to pounce, on scorched earth in the Badlands, east side of the map, and rarely in the wasteland on extinction. Tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring either extraordinary kibble for the best taming effectiveness, or cooked lamb chops for its second preferred taming food. Once tamed, can be saddled up at level 51 and crafted in a smithy. If you're looking for a speedy, agile and mobile creature to traverse land, then there is nothing that beats the Thylacoleo. With strong stats across the board, able to jump and scale vertical surfaces as you please with ease, will have you traversing any terrain in no time at all. But it isn't their stats that make them shine, but the ability to quickly bleed out their target's health. Their bite attack will inflict the Nash status effect, which will drain 5% of the target's health over 5 seconds and will ignore saddle armor. However, this effect does not work against bosses, but this does mean that the Thyla can take down far larger threats than itself, including armored beasts like the Rock Elemental, for example. Adding to this, the rider can wield their weapons when mounted, so with the combination of both, you'll be able to output a lot of damage while nipping around quickly with the Thyla's exceptional mobility. For these reasons, the Thyla is hands down one of the best battle mounts in the entire game. Coming in not so hot, we have the Daedon, the War Pig. You'll find them commonly spawning in the snow biomes on most maps, and the majority of the mainland on scorched earth. Once again, another relatively simple knockout tame. They can be bowlered and easily trapped if you choose to do so, preferring superior kibble, but if you're cray-cray, you could tame them on any type of meat, but they eat excessive amounts of it. Once tamed, it can be saddled up at level 59. You'll then have yourself one of the best support creatures in the game, able to heal large amounts of tame creatures with its AoE heal ability. This can be triggered when mounted when pressing the alternate attack key, or can be set to enable passive heal via its radial menu, which it will trigger by itself every 20 seconds or so. If you don't want to micromanage this so much, I would usually just level up its food stat as much as possible. This ability is great for healing up your army at the cost of massively draining the Daedon's food stat. It will quickly drop to 0 food when healing a lot of creatures at the same time, so you will need a good supply of meat to fully refill its food stat. This can be done very quickly when playing solo or with no players nearby. Simply ram it full of food, fly at a render distance, or log out and relog, and it will instantly consume all the food you gave it. The Daedon can also be great to take into boss fights. Always be sure to have your Daedon set to passive and ignore group whistles. The last thing you want is for your Daedon to leave you for dead in the thick of battle, charging on in without a care in the world. Riding one in the boss fight is especially useful if you have tribe mates available, as they can output a lot of damage from the saddle with firearms while also healing your army at the same time. I sometimes do take one along when playing solo just for a safety blanket, just in case I don't feel confident that I can win the battle, so it can be a good idea to take food along for your Daedon. Cooked prime meat works a treat. I usually have an abundance of this in fridges. I do find this is one of the best uses for it after storing so much of it. This is just a few examples of what makes the Daedon so good. We now have the Argentavis, and wow, where to start? I will never find a more satisfying feeling in ARK than when I find my first high-level Argentavis. I wholeheartedly believe it is the most useful creature in the game, found commonly spawning around the mountainous regions and snow biomes on most maps, and rarely around the wasteland and edges of the Sanctuary on Extinction. Can easily be baited into a trap and tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring superior kibble, but if you're anything like me, you'll be taming your first ideally on raw prime meat or raw mutton. Once tamed, can be saddled up at level 62, which is crafted inside the player's inventory. You'll probably be asking yourself, is there anything that the Argentavis cannot do? With decent health, stamina and weight stats, able to output decent damage too, while causing great knockback to targets when walking on land. Pairing that with its rapid regeneration buff, which occurs whenever it bites or consumes a carcass, giving it health and stamina regeneration for the duration of 20 seconds. Able to pick up a wide variety of creatures in its talons, paired with the Doedicurus or the Ankylosaurus for the perfect farming team. It can also pick up small creatures in its beak, which can make taming the otter very easy, for example, as it will keep the creature in its beak when landed. The saddle can also be used as a portable smithy to craft and repair items on the go. Having an Argentavis fully pumped in weight makes crafting those expensive blueprints a possibility, which would normally be impossible to craft in a smithy. Due to its weight reduction, it can hold a wide variety of heavy resources, the perfect companion for cargo hauling and crafting alike. Even a low-level Argentavis can serve numerous purposes. The Argentavis has and always will be one of my favorite creatures to use whatever the map I am playing. Temporarily moving away from aggressive creatures, we have the Oviraptor, found commonly spawning around the beaches and jungles on most maps, in the east and west of Aberration's green zone, and rarely in the city and the sunken forest on Extinction. It can be bowled and tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring dino eggs as taming food. The bigger the egg, the better the taming effectiveness. For example, a Giga egg, or second best a Quetzal or Rex egg. Once tamed, either stick it in a cage or ram it full of stones so that it doesn't wander off. Set it to wander, and this will increase the production speed of unfertilized eggs in nearby tamed mate boosted creatures, which is indicated by an egg icon above their name. The Oviraptor also has the option to pick up both fertilized and non-fertilized eggs in a nearby radius, and it will do this well above its weight capacity, similar to the dung beetle but with eggs. Boosh! Moving on to probably one of the most annoying creatures to tame in the game. Yes, that's right, the giant queen bee. You will typically find them in the beehives located on the side of the giant trees in the redwoods, on scorched earth in the canyon where the cave entrance lies, to the artifact of the gatekeeper, the sanctuary on Extinction, and they can also be rarely found roaming around the open world. For example, I've seen a few below the green obelisk on the island map. Tamed passively by equipping either rare flowers or simple kibble in your final hotbar slot and shoving them up its bum for the best taming efficiency. Equipping a full set of ghillie is always a good idea, while spraying yourself down with that fresh bug repellent. Ideally, after breaking the hive open or finding one in the wild, you need to feed it right away or switch between letting it calm down, going out to render, and running in again to spam the feed button in hopes that it will tame up. I do have a few cheeky tips on how I like to tame one here in this video. Link will be in the description of the video and in a pinned comment. The roaming bees are much easier to tame due to not having to aggress upon their belongings. Spray yourself down down with some bug repellent, and run on in for the quick feed. Once tamed, you can turn the bee into a hive. It then goes into your inventory as a placeable structure. Place inside or near your greenhouse, chuck in a few stacks of rare flowers to keep it alive, and it will produce honey over time. Honey is an extremely important resource used for crafting the highest quality of kibble, sweet vegetable cakes, and used in many other crafting recipes, which is why I chose the bee over the diabet in taking this spot on the list. The Ferrozenosaurus is a territorial and deadly herbivore. It is another very popular dino that can do almost anything and everything. Found typically around the dense jungles on most maps, or rarely in the wasteland on extinction. Tamed via typical knockout methods and preferring exceptional kibble for the best taming efficiency. Once tamed, can be saddled up at level 69. Equipped with 3 attacks, a bite attack, great for gathering berries, hide, kiting, and many more. Its primary power attack, aka the slap attack, great for gathering wood, raw meat, and many more. And its delicate attack, aka the tickle attack, which is no doubt where it gets its nickname the tickle chicken from. This attack is exceptional for harvesting fiber, rare flowers, and other unique collectibles. That's right, the ferry can do it all. They are also equipped with their own harvesting levels, which can be accessed via their radial menu. With every level they gain, they also gain a harvesting level. You can put these into either power or delicate harvesting, which will boost its gathering efficiency in which fields you choose to level. Power levels increase harvesting with its slap attack, while delicate levels increase harvesting of its tickle and bite attack. One thing I did want to point out is if you stick the ferry in a spot with lots of bushes, they will actually harvest the resources better, letting them do it themselves, instead of if the player is mounted using the tickle attack. The bushes in the swamp are a great example of this. You will rarely find rare flowers from these bushes using the tickle attack when mounted. However, the ferry gathers rare flowers from these bushes 10 times more efficiently when unmounted. But of course, it doesn't just excel as a farming machine, but as a very powerful battle mount with a high health pool and high damage output, rivaling the stats of even the T-Rex. However, being as it is a herbivore, it has access to the healing effect of sweet veggie cakes, which makes the Ferrozeno a popular pick as a battle mount and a formidable boss fighter in most arenas. The Gigantoraptor is a territorial omnivore only available in ARK Survival Ascended. It can be found guarding its nests in the jungles on most maps, Aberration's Green Zone, and Extinction's Sunken Forest and Sanctuary. Tamed passively, where you can only tame their babies. You will need to don some ghillie armor. You'll need a good collection of fertilized eggs, dropping one onto the ground away from the nest to distract the parent. The bigger the fertilized eggs, the longer they can be distracted for. Proceeding to sit in the nest and play a mini game to mimic the baby's animations to improve taming effectiveness. Rinse and repeat until it is tamed. Once tamed, can also be saddled up at level 69 and equipped with an array of abilities. The baby call option, which once used will scan any nearby wild babies, showing you a waypoint. Any baby claimed by the Gigantoraptor will gain bonus levels. One thing to note is that the baby you are wanting to claim has to be of the same or lower level than the Gigantoraptor you are riding. It will act as a feeding trough to any babies in the saddle using food from its inventory. The player does have to be riding the Gigantoraptor for this to work, and it does have the awesome ability of being able to re-roll the cares on babies, which can be done one time for each imprinting cycle, which is performed by using its baby call option. Very useful if you do not own the item the baby is craving. Moving on to the bonding mechanic, where the Gigantoraptor loves to show their young how to hunt. When riding a Gigantoraptor that you have imprinted with babies in the saddle, the babies will want to go hunting. An icon will be visible at the bottom of the screen with a counter, and enemies will be marked for you. Once hunting that enemy, it will increase the kill counter. Rinse and repeat until you reach the required amount of hunts. The baby will then be fully bonded with the parent. Basically, the parent and any babies fully bonded with it will receive damage stacking and damage resistance buffs, along with a small experience buff whenever in range of the parent. When accessing its radial menu, you will see the option to pluck its feathers, which does have a cooldown. When inspecting the feathers in your inventory, you'll see a stat and a percentage. You can place these feathers into tame creatures that you are breeding. After mating these creatures, the feather will be consumed by them and will give the baby a higher chance of taking those stats. As of now, you can place feathers inside the male's inventory, whereas before you could only place them in the female. Not only is it useful in raising babies, but it can also incubate eggs for you. This can be done by putting a fertilized egg inside its inventory and attaching the egg to the saddle slot of your choice. It is more of a lover than a fighter. Its attacks dealing average damage. A very quick sprinter that can jump and perform mini glides, acting like a parachute, so it can get you places pretty sharpish. All these reasons are why you need to tame the Gigantoraptor. The Tyrannosaurus is one that cannot be left off this list. Its high health pool and high damage is almost unrivaled by any creature of its size, typically spawning on carnival islands, mountainous regions, commonly in the southeastern part of Scorched Earth, and mainly in the wasteland of extinction. Relatively easy to find on most maps and tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring exceptional kibble for the best taming effectiveness, and saddled up at level 74, crafted in a smithy. It is pound for pound one of the best boss fighters in the game. The Rex is also one of the few creatures that does have access to a tech saddle, which gives it an edge over its rivals. Well, this thing is an absolute beast. Let me introduce you to the Deinosuchus. You can find them commonly spawning in the swamp areas of most maps. Tamed passively, wearing ghillie armor is always a good idea to avoid unnecessary aggro from wild creatures in the area. Wait for it to open its giant jaws, run up to it with superior kibble in your final hotbar slot, and boom, feed. Pull a 180 and run in the opposite direction, rinse and repeat until it is tamed. Once tamed, it is also saddled up at level 74. A great semi-aquatic mount for almost any occasion, as it does not possess an oxygen stat. Considering its large size, it is very agile and has a pretty quick swimming speed. It has a variety of deadly attacks at its disposal, including a hefty base directional bite attack, a tail swipe attack that deals slightly more damage than the basic bite, while yeeting its targets into oblivion, and its deadliest attack, the Gigabyte, which can be charged up and at full charge will clamp down on its enemies, dealing massive damage. And if charged to 100%, will also inflict the fractured debuff to the target, which is like a bleed effect but only drains the target's health when they move, which is definitely your first thought after receiving a Gigabyte to the nostril. The rider can also wield their weapons when mounted, making it a great taming aid too, and it does also take 50% less damage to its head, and a wide variety of damage reductions for different weapons when hit in the body. The Deinosuchus is hands down one of the deadliest boss fighters in the game right now. That Gigabyte damage is just too good. We then move on to our first and only shoulder pet on the list. Oh, look at that cute little face. That's right, the otter is one of the most valuable companions you could take around with you wherever you go. Maybe one of the more infuriating creatures to tame, hard to find as they rarely spawn in the rivers and lakes on most maps, tamed by dragging dead fish to them and hand feeding them. Preferring saber-toothed salmon, the larger you can find, the better. Remember though that if you are playing on a PvP server or a server that enables flyer carry, then you can pick one up in the Argentavis's beak, making taming them very easy. The otter provides a stacking insulation effect, roughly around 82 hypo and 38 hypothermic protection. This can be improved by leveling its melee stat, so they will keep you warm in those super cold places. Added to this, if you do have enough of them, they can even incubate fertilized eggs. And being as they are a shoulder pet, they receive 50% weight reduction for anything inside their inventory when on the player's shoulder, allowing you to carry many more items. They also have the unique ability of being the only creature in the entire game that can carry more than one of the same artifact inside their inventory, something even a player cannot do, which is an absolute lifesaver for solo players. You can equip them with helmets for extra armor protection, and whenever killing fish and harvesting the carcass, they have a good chance to harvest silica pearls and the very rare black pearls. It will run on up to you and present you with its gift. Oh, so cute. The Yutyrannus is potentially the most valuable support dinosaur in the entire game. A highly aggressive carnivore commonly found in the snow biomes on most maps, or the mountains on Scorched Earth. Tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring extraordinary kibble for the best taming effectiveness. Saddled up at level 80, having a high health pool, and decent damage output. That being said, it's rarely used as a battle mount, boasting two raw abilities, the first one being the Fear Roar, which when used will reduce any affected target's attack damage and damage resistance by 50%. And will also cause the majority of small to medium creatures to flee, if 100% affected. This is where it becomes a great battle mount for me. I love using my Bred UT to breeze through the hard snow cave on the island map, due to it being able to scare out the buried Palovias, where all other creatures in the cave are also affected by the roar, allowing the UT to steamroll this cave. Moving on to its Courage Roar, which is definitely the most popular, which when used will give affected allies 25% extra melee damage and 20% damage resistance, which is what makes the Yutyrannus the best support dinosaur in the entire game. The UT will always be the most valuable asset in every boss fight arena. They are also most likely the easiest method of gaining access to special eggs. Tame up a male and a bunch of females and you'll have yourself a nice ticket to an extraordinary kibble farm. All of these reasons are why you need to tame yourself a Yutyrannus or a bunch. The Carcharodontosaurus is one of the largest and most dangerous carnivores in the game, found rarely spawning around the mountainous regions, Lava Island on the center, and the edge of the snow dome on extinction. Tamed passively via a unique taming method, where you will have to kill high drag weight creatures, dragging the carcass to it to gobble up to build up its trust bar, where it will allow you to ride it for 10 minutes, proceeding to kill as many creatures as you can to improve the taming effectiveness, bucking you off when the counter reaches 100, which you will rinse and repeat until it is tamed. Once tamed, can be saddled up at a whopping level of 96. It has a massive health pool and very high base damage, but it comes into its own with its passive buffs. Firstly, it has a passive known as Shredded. With every bite the Carcha lands, will reduce healing the victim receives from any source. It will also receive the passive Killing Frenzy, which occurs whenever the Carcha lands a fatal blow. The effect will last for 10 seconds and will increase its movement speed and grant it immunity to any stun attacks. Blood Rage is by far its strongest ability, which will increase its healing rate and melee damage by 1.75% per stack. The counter is visible at the bottom of your screen. Every kill will increase the Blood Rage counter, and at 100 full stacks will boost its healing rate and damage by a whopping 175%, making them one of the deadliest killing machines in the entire game. And if you wanted to, you can also throw away all this power by roaring, which will give all nearby tamed creatures the incited buff, giving them a temporary movement speed bonus. You're probably wondering why I would stick the Carcha on a PvE list, but there are two main reasons why I think they are so valuable. Surprisingly, considering its large size, it can still fit into the tech cave on the island map, which is something the Giga of comparable size cannot do. This will definitely aid you in beating this cave, and of course they are also the best asset when defending hard and legendary OSDs. Their Blood Rage almost makes them invincible. OSDs are the best way to farm loot in the game right now, which is why the Carcharodontosaurus is such a valuable dinosaur to own. And that is going to be the end of the video for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did or found it helpful in any way, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Take care, goodbye.